spread of this infection in the community. And secondly, that we need to continue to be vigilant, need to continue with our hand washing, social distancing, and masks, and the strategy of
Hmm.
isolation, testing, and contact tracing, because still a very large number of the population in Delhi is vulnerable, and we need to be careful in terms of not having increasing number of cases because of that.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Reddy, you are based out of Hyderabad. Now, this survey was specific to Delhi, but what are the lessons that other cities can learn, for instance, Hyderabad or Mumbai or Chennai, from the lessons that we have learned from the serological survey conducted in Delhi?
Yeah, one important lesson I think we have learned
Hmm.
is the number of asymptomatic patients,
Right.
they infected but did not develop illness, is
Hmm.
significantly high. I mean, it's a good news that a lot of people don't develop illness. It also tells us the true rate of infection.
Hmm.
So it is important for most of the cities or even the towns to have the surveillance study
Right.
to calibrate their response as per the current prevalence of infection. The second important information I can gather is in the next 4 weeks,
Hmm.
now it has already passed, what could have been the infection rate if we do the surveillance today? And because that tells us how close we are moving towards the herd immunity level, which for the COVID virus, at its reproduction rate of 2.8, is expected to be around 64% of the population. So these are the two important information that we can gather as to what percentage of infected people are truly asymptomatic. For
Hmm.
example, in Spain, the asymptomatic to the positive cases ratio was 10:1. As per similar study across the country, actually, not just in one city. The Delhi numbers, if we extrapolate to the Delhi population, it translates to almost 100 asymptomatic cases for
Right.
every positive case. So that's very interesting to analyze. I think what are the factors which are making us truly asymptomatic? Similarly, the mortality rate has been much lower compared to many other countries. So there may be, in addition to the public health measures which the government has been taking and the people's cooperation in some of the social distancing,
Hmm.
what could be the other reasons in terms of the BCG vaccination or innate immunity? What is actually making people uh, the lesser mortality as well as large number of people remaining asymptomatic despite infection? So I think the NCDC must be looking much deeper into the study to have much more learnings which can be applied in the public health measures.
Right. Dr. Guleria, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Delhi survey, we are told that it will help formulate an alternative strategy if required going forward, not only in Delhi but elsewhere in the country as well. Help us understand the import of the results from this survey and how they can go towards formulating a strategy or a new strategy if required going forward.
So there are two things. One is for Delhi and the other is for
Sure.
other cities which have a similar population
Right.
density. What it does suggest is that, as has already been mentioned, that a large number of our population does have exposure and have asymptomatic illness, and which
Okay.
is a good sign. It also tells us that we have a much lower mortality than what was being shown in the West. And one of the theories could also be that we are a younger population. The average age of our population is much younger, and we know that younger people have milder illness, and thereby the mortality is lower. It also helps us to look at how things are changing, what strategy do we need in terms of further planning.
Hmm.
For example, if this number was high, we would have said that we've reached a stage where there is a large scale transmission occurring and we need to change our strategy.
Right.
Currently, as we are saying, 77% of people are still vulnerable. So I think the initial strategy or the strategy that we have currently in terms of social distancing, in terms of isolation, in terms of testing, tracing, and isolating, we need to continue aggressively because we need to continue with the progress that we've made. The number of cases in Delhi have come down significantly. But this survey tells us that we need to work more in terms of keeping that level down,
Hmm.
both in terms of mortality and number of cases.
Dr. Reddy, now this survey was specific to Delhi, but if I were to ask you, would you recommend or favor similar tests elsewhere in the country? Is it practical? Is it feasible? Or you think one can draw the lessons from Delhi survey and replicate it going forward elsewhere?
No, in fact, it has to be replicated in every city and
Okay.
even I think the towns, as the epidemic spreads to the towns, it has to be replicated there in a sampling basis, I mean, statistical sampling basis to understand how the infection is spreading and how the population is behaving. So this is a strong lesson actually that what we thought or the caseload and what is the number of infections. I think it gives an important lesson for every state government actually to undertake the seroprevalence study as a part of their calibrated approach to the epidemic. As the cities get infected, I think the virus starts moving into the interiors of the country. So that's where I think we have to be watchful and closely monitor some of these seroprevalence studies. Especially as Dr. Guleria has said, we should not lower our guard in terms of the current containment measures,
Right.
the personal protection, social distancing, hand washing. Because the moment you relax it, your reproduction rates start jumping up. Then you start seeing the second spike. So that we should never allow it to happen. So I think a lot of lessons are going to be there. I'm sure NCDC will start releasing additional learnings from this study so that other states can learn from this survey, a very important survey, I would say. And everybody was waiting for these survey results. I think we are fortunate that we have the data now. I'm sure it will be interesting to undertake similar studies, for example, in Dharavi. What measures impacted the decline in the Dharavi and the containment, and what is the seroprevalence in Dharavi? Suppose the seroprevalence is high, that means that the innate immunity of the Dharavi population must be high. So majority of the people might have remained asymptomatic. So I think, yeah, a lot more learnings we can have from this study.
Absolutely. Dr. Guleria, now my next question is about community transmission. Now, does the figure of 23.48% indicate that that stage has not been reached? Is it safe to assume?
So yes, I agree with that. Personally, I would just like to add that
Sure.
ICMR is already planning a nationwide survey, serosurveillance study, like they had done in April. And that would be really useful for the whole country to see how things have evolved from the serosurveillance that was done in April to now.
Right.
Because in my mind, serosurveillance will have to be done serially in the entire country to see how the pandemic is evolving in terms of people having got the infection and becoming positive. It
Right.
would include both the large cities and the rural part. The number currently in Delhi suggests that we still have not significant community transmission. The large majority of our population, 77%, is still susceptible, and therefore measures that I had mentioned in terms of social distancing, testing and contact tracing, and containment areas where a cluster is developing become all the more important if we need to keep our cases down and prevent another spike.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Reddy, from your perspective, and from your vantage, what will you tell the world at large who are questioning India's methods or data? Now, they treat it with some suspicion or skepticism. What would you tell them tonight when people around are asking, is India sort of hiding the figures or not? What is India successfully doing differently than other countries to break the chain and beat the coronavirus?
See, I think we cannot hide the deaths. I think
Right.
if you look at the deaths per million, definitely we have done far better than
Sure.
any other country in the world. What are the reasons for that? We have to go much deeper. I mean,
Okay.
apart from the one of the most aggressive lockdowns in the world, what are the different measures and also the other variables in terms of the population variables, their innate immunity variables, their demographic profile variables. So a lot more scientific research has to go into this to come up with why we fared better compared to any other country. But at the same time, we should not lower our guard because it is a time point. At this time point, we are doing better. It should not be that we lose our guard and then suddenly we explode, wherein our numbers start matching other countries.
Right. And Dr. Guleria, now that we are told the virus is spreading through the air as well, not just through the surface or touch, would we require any change in mitigation or adaptability against the virus, or change in behavior or lifestyles, changes in the near term?
So I think it's important to understand what we mean by airborne transmission.
Sure.
When we talk of droplet transmission, we're talking of particle size which are larger, more than 5 micron, and these don't travel very far off. They don't travel more than 6 feet
Okay.
and tend to settle on surfaces, and thereby only coming in close contact or touching these surfaces where the droplet cause the infection. But aerosol is basically particles which are less than 5 microns. They can travel further on, even go up to 6 meters, and can stay in the air for almost 2 to 3 hours. Now, how much of infection is being controlled by these airborne particles is still not clear. But as what we should do is predominantly in the indoor environment. We must have a good cross ventilation. If
Okay.
you're working indoors, you must have your windows open so that fresh air keeps coming in and there's good air exchange, so that all these aerosols go out of the window. If you're using an AC, it should have good air exchanges, almost 6 air exchanges an hour. And you must try and have an exhaust in the room. If you can't have, the windows cannot be opened, so that the air keeps going out of the room and there is good cross ventilation. So these are and we must, if you are in a crowded place inside, we must also continue to wear our mask, so
Right.
that the chances in getting the infection are diminished.
Absolutely. Dr. Reddy, the World Health Organization says that India manufactures 60%, 60% of the vaccines, sent globally. But the emphasis or accent on R&D leaves much to be desired for. So is now a good time to give an impetus to R&D, indigenous research and development on vaccines going forward as well?
Yeah, I think I would say that one of the silver lining of the COVID pandemic in India has been that the entire the government R&D labs, whether it is CSIR or DBT or DST or DRDO, for the first time, I think they have opened up their research potential to
Right.
partner with the private sector. So that's, I think, I would say the most synergistic and collaborative development that we are seeing, that the R&D institutions started opening up for generating the public goods from their basic research and the fundamental research. So this is the greatest opportunity the country can have, because whoever develops the vaccine, whichever country develops the vaccine, I think India has to manufacture the vaccines for the other countries as well.
Sure.
We have the capacity and we have the cost factor. In fact, one of the key transformation of HIV treatment in Africa is because the Indian companies lowered the prices, which Africans can afford it. That is one of the greatest success story. And I think the whole world is looking towards India to provide cost-effective vaccines as and when they are shown to be effective and ready for patient usage.
Dr. Guleria, we are only 2 days into the start of the human trial of an indigenously developed vaccine called Covaxin. Given the fact that these are early days, how confident are we as a nation that India will be able to come up with a viable vaccine in the near term, maybe by the year end or early next year? Is there a timeline that you have in mind?
So timelines are always difficult to give as far as vaccines
Sure.
are concerned, because they go through various phases and it depends on the success of each phase in terms of the timeline. But I think we have a very good chance of doing well. We've started our human trials and they're being done in multiple centers, and we're moving seamlessly from phase 1 to phase 2 so that we don't waste time. And the testing for safety and for immunogenicity will be done as we go along, so that we see that the vaccine is safe. It gives good immunogenicity, and that lasts in terms of both the T cell response and the antibodies it forms. At the same time, there is also investment in manufacturing, so that once we get all the trials through the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 trial, and we are ready for manufacturing, we don't waste time in the plants being made ready, but the vaccine plant is already ready and it can go straight into manufacturing. Also, besides this, there are other vaccines which are coming up. Cadila is also coming up with a
Right.
vaccine. Serum Institute is also coming up with a vaccine, and they are now moving into a phase of human trial. So I think we have multiple vaccine trials which will start in the next few weeks, and hopefully most of them will become successful, and that will really help us in actually being able to meet the load of the vaccines that we will need for the population that we have in terms of vaccination.
Right. And Dr. Reddy, one question that everybody in India seems to be asking, and around the world at the same time, is that has India peaked? If not, when will India likely peak? So, do you have an answer to that question?
I didn't understand the question.
People around the world are asking, has India peaked insofar as the incidence of coronavirus is concerned? If not, then do you have a certain timeline in mind when we might actually peak and then the graph will begin to drop?
I think it is still unpredictable as to when it will peak.
Okay.
Zero surveillance study will help us modeling the peak rate, and also as the data is coming from interior of the countries. As I said, because the wave front is moving from the cities now to the towns and the villages. That is a worry point. So it always makes it challenging to make any predictions. I think we should not keep on predicting, but rather continue to do what we are supposed to do. I think that is, I would say, would be my message, rather than spending time on when it is going to peak or when it is going to subside.
All right, I'm running out of time. So very quickly, Dr. Guleria, would you like to hazard a guess or an informed guesstimate on that question about India peaking or not?
So again, I think it's a difficult question because there are too many variables. Also, in my mind, we will peak at different times in different areas. Cities will tend to peak at an earlier time because we've had a large number of cases there. And we're already seeing that happening. The number of cases in Delhi has started coming down. It's coming down in other cities also, like Ahmedabad or in Mumbai.
Okay.
But there are other smaller cities like Patna or Guwahati or where the cases have started increasing. So they will have peaks at different time. So as has been seen in US also, different states will peak at different times, or different areas will peak at different times and come down. So I don't think we can give a number as to when the whole country will peak. It will happen in a gated manner. And that makes our strategy all the more challenging.
Absolutely.
Because people will also travel. So if you have an area where the numbers have really come down, you may have people coming from areas where the cases are still rising. And how do you really make sure that they don't contribute to an increasing spike in that area? So these are going to be challenges over the next few months.
Absolutely. On that note, Dr. Guleria and Dr. Reddy, thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. All right, moving on, the flood situation remains grim in some parts of India. Bihar and Assam are the worst hit. Home Minister Amit Shah spoke to Meghalaya's Chief Minister Conrad Sangma and offered all help to the state to deal with the flood situation there. Here's a detailed report from all the flood-affected states. Take a look.
Various parts of the country continue to grapple with heavy rains and floods. Assam and Bihar are among those badly affected by heavy rainfall. In Bihar, the flood situation has worsened in Sitamarhi, Shivhar, Supaul, Kishanganj, Darbhanga, Muzaffarpur, Gopalganj, along with East and West Champaran. While in Assam, rivers Brahmaputra and its tributary continue to flow above the danger mark in Jorhat, Tejpur, Guwahati, Gawalpada and Dubdhi. Over 24 lakh people have been affected in 24 districts. The death toll due to flooding reached 87 after 2 more persons died, while so far 27 people have lost their lives due to landslides. There has been no significant improvement in the situation in the last 24 hours. Chief Minister Sarbanand Sonowal visited the flood-hit areas. In Bihar, the flood situation worsened due to heavy rains in neighborhood Nepal. The flood situation deteriorated following the discharge of 4.50 lakh cusecs of water from Gandak barrage. A high alert has been issued in Gopalganj.
अभी तक जो हमारे मैक्सिमम इस बार पानी आया है वो 3,39,000 क्यूसेक आया है। उससे करीब 1 लाख से ज़्यादा और पानी उससे ज़्यादा पानी हम आने की संभावना है।
The Meteorological Department has issued fresh warning of heavy rain and thunderstorm in 7 districts in Bihar, including Sarang, Bhojpur, Aurangabad, Rohtas, Muzaffarpur, Nalanda and Nawada. While in Meghalaya, heavy rainfall in various parts of the state has caused mayhem. Union Home Minister Amit Shah spoke to Chief Minister Congrad K. Sangma. Home Minister assured him of all possible help from the central government to him. Amit Shah also expressed his grief over the loss of lives due to the floods in the plain belt of West Garo Hills. Delhi too witnessed heavy rains causing waterlogging at various places, while in Uttarakhand a major portion of Haridwar boundary wall got damaged due to incessant rains accompanying lightning strikes. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Right, moving on, the Rajasthan High Court on Tuesday asked Rajasthan Assembly Speaker to defer action on disqualification notices sent to dissident Congress MLAs till 24th July. The court will pass an appropriate order on the writ petition filed by Sachin Pilot and 18 other dissident MLAs on the 24th. On Friday, the court had given a 4-day reprieve to Pilot and others from any action by the Rajasthan Speaker by extending the hearing into their petition. Now, Pilot was sacked as the Deputy Chief Minister and the President of Rajasthan unit of the Congress Party after he rebelled against Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot. And Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Prakash Javadekar has lashed out at Rahul Gandhi of the Congress Party for insulting the people of India and the brave Corona warriors. The minister slammed Gandhi by listing the Congress Party's track record of the past 6 months, from Shaheen Bagh and riots in February to political turmoil in Rajasthan.
मुझे लगता है कांग्रेस पार्टी अब केवल ट्वीट की पार्टी बनकर रह जाएगी, क्योंकि जनता में काम नहीं, एक के बाद एक राज्य गंवा रहे, और इसलिए हताश निराश पार्टी सरकार पर कुछ भी प्रहार करने की चेष्टा कर रही है, वो सफल नहीं होंगे.
The minister said the Congress party would be reduced to a party that only tweets. He said a dejected Congress party was attempting to attack the central government in every manner possible, but will not succeed.
आज उन्होंने ट्वीट किया फरवरी से जुलाई तक क्या किया, तो हम भी उनको जरा हिसाब बताते कि राहुल बाबा 6 महीने की आपकी उपलब्धि क्या है. फरवरी में शाहीन बाग और दंगे, मार्च में सिंधिया और मध्य प्रदेश गंवाना, अप्रैल में श्रमिकों को उकसाना, मई में ऐतिहासिक हार की 6ठी वर्षगांठ, जून में चीन की वकालत और जुलाई में राजस्थान में पार्टी तबाह. तो यही आपका काम चल रहा है.
All right, shifting focus to Jammu and Kashmir now, where Lieutenant Governor Girish Chandra Murmu, who chairs the Amarnath Shrine Board, presided over the 39th board meeting. The board members participated via video conference to discuss this year's pilgrimage. The board considers the government's view that it would not be advisable to conduct the Amarnath pilgrimage this year, and that it would be advisable to cancel it this year in the larger public interest. Now, doing so would enable the health, civil and police officials to focus on immediate challenges than diverting resources, manpower and attention to the conduct of the pilgrimage. Right, for more on this story, I'm now joined by my colleague Salman Qazi. Salman, good to have you join us on Newsnight. Help our viewers understand the reasons for the cancellation of this year's Amarnath pilgrimage. Salman?
The reasons that have been set by the government are that there has been the spread of COVID-19, and they think that it might not be prudent to continue with the yatra, as it would endanger both the yatris and the local population. As yatra, it is a huge logistical exercise. There are lots of security measures, and there are doctors who are deployed. So at this point of time, the administration has come up with this reasoning that due to the COVID pandemic, there are apprehensions that this might lead to unmanageable health situations. So definitely, so that's why I said that they would not be allowing yatra this year. However, Shrine Board has decided that the rituals and other aartis, they would take place, and however, but no yatri would be allowed to visit Amarnath Shrine.
Absolutely. And very quickly now, you would have seen many such pilgrimages of the last many years in Jammu and Kashmir. Help our viewers understand the logistical nightmare that organizing it is all about. It's a logistical nightmare in terms of the number of pilgrims who take part in the Amarnath Yatra and also security consideration as well.
Yeah, there are always security considerations, and there are always huge logistical operations.
Right.
But I think the state government and the central government have always been they have been very meticulous about organizing, and I think it is very professionally managed yatra that's been done. And this decision right now is a testament to that professionalism, because there was a situation of COVID-19 being such a huge threat to every other
Right.
activity, which involves a lot of interaction among the people. So definitely, what they have done is that they have eliminated the risk by this decision, and said that they would continue with the rituals and the practices that are associated with the yatra, but yatra and the yatris won't be allowed. In fact, DD Kashir Doordarshan would be carrying these rituals live on its channel. So a lot of people, in fact, can watch that on Doordarshan DD Kashir channel.
Absolutely. As my colleague Salman Qazi was pointing out, you can stay tuned to DD Kashir, our sister channel, for those pictures of the rituals being conducted in the Amarnath shrine. But as he pointed out, the pilgrimage itself will not take place this year. Salman Qazi, thank you for that update. Appreciate it. Right, moving on, the mortal remains of Madhya Pradesh Governor Lalji Tandon were consigned to flames at the Gulala Ghat in Lucknow this evening. The last rites of the veteran leader were performed with full state honours. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and the Member of Parliament from Lucknow, the Governor of Uttar Pradesh, Anandiben Patel, and Chief Minister of the state, Yogi Adityanath, were among the many who bid adieu to Lalji Tandon. Now, Tandon had breathed his last this morning after a prolonged illness. He was 85 years old. Earlier, thousands of BJP workers and well-wishers had turned up at his residence to pay tributes to the leader. All right, take a look at what else is making news around India in our national wrap. The Air Force Commanders Conference will be held from 22nd to 24th July at the Air Force Headquarters in New Delhi. The theme this year is Indian Air Force in the next decade. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will inaugurate the conference. Air Chief Marshal R.K. Bhadauria will preside over it. Over the 3 days, the current operational scenario and deployment of the Air Force will be discussed, as well as an action plan to increase the operational capacity of the Indian Air Force in the next decade. The Delhi High Court has issued a notice to the central government, the Delhi government, RBI and PMC Bank seeking a reply by 19th August on the petition filed in the PMC Bank scam case. In the petition, the depositors have demanded unconditional permission to withdraw up to 5 lakh rupees in view of the medical emergency. After this scam came to light, reports of many depositors committing suicide have come to light. The CBI questioned Rajasthan Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot's OSD Devaram Saini in the SHO Vishnu Dutt Bishnoi suicide case. The interrogation in Jaipur lasted about 2 hours. Congress MLA and Olympic medalist Krishna Punia was also questioned by CBI in the same case on Monday. SHO Vishnu Dutt was posted at Rajgarh police station in Churu district. His body was recovered from his residence on 23rd May. In a letter, Vishnu Dutt had alleged that political pressure was exerted on him when he was investigating a case. NIA Special Court has extended the custody of the main accused Swapna Suresh and Sandeep Nair till 24th July in the gold smuggling case that surfaced in Kerala. Meanwhile, the NIA is investigating another accused, Sarith, who is in custody. He's being taken to Thiruvananthapuram and other places in connection with the investigations. On 5th July, Customs Department uncovered smuggling of 30 kilograms of gold valued at around 15 crore rupees. This gold was being brought using diplomatic channels. 11 people have been convicted in the Raja Man Singh murder case. The sentence will be pronounced on Wednesday. 3 of the accused have been acquitted in Raja Man Singh murder case. Raja Man Singh's daughter Deepa Singh and her husband Vijay Singh were present for the hearing in the Mathura court of the 35-year-old trial. On 21st February 1985, Raja Man Singh of Bharatpur and 2 others were killed in an encounter with police in the Deeg police station area. The case was investigated by the CBI and a hearing was going on in the Mathura court since 1990 on the orders of the Supreme Court. Film critic Rajiv Masand was questioned at Bandra police station in Mumbai in the case relating to the death of actor Sushant Singh Rajput. Rajiv Masand is accused of deliberately writing negative reviews against Sushant as part of a larger conspiracy. Earlier, the Mumbai police had also interrogated Sanjay Leela Bhansali, Aditya Chopra, Shekhar Kapoor and Riya Chakrabarti. On 14th June, Sushant's body was found at his Bandra residence. No note or letter of any kind was found. After Sushant's death, the issue of nepotism has been hot in Bollywood. Now, the first 5 Rafale fighter jets from France will soon arrive in India. They'll be inducted into a squadron at Ambala at the end of July. Nandita Dagar reports.
The first 5 Rafale Omni-Role fighter jets will be arriving in India in late July. They will be operationalized in a squadron at the Ambala Air Force Base. The Rafale aircraft can prove to be a game changer because it is armed with Meteor air-to-air missiles and Scalp cruise missiles. The Defence Minister Rajnath Singh had accepted formally the first Rafale last year in October at Mérignac in France. These 5 Rafales were to be delivered to India in May this year, but this delivery was delayed due to the coronavirus pandemic. All the pilots, ground crew and engineers have been trained on the Rafale in France, and the weapon systems, missiles such as Scalp missile and Meteor missiles, the other weapon systems have already been delivered to India. The delivery of the entire batch of 36 Rafales will be completed by April 2022. The Rafale engine has a capability of cold start, which means that it can take off from places like Ladakh, which are high altitude places. And therefore, this fighter can give a significant edge to India over others. With camera person Sumit Naudial in New Delhi, this is Nandita Dagar for DD News.
All right, time now for all the news related to the COVID-19 pandemic. A phase 2 trial of a COVID-19 vaccine candidate conducted in China has found that the vaccine is safe and induces an immune response, according to a new study published Monday in the medical journal The Lancet. The results provide data from a wider group of participants than the phase 1 trial, which was published in May. Phase 1 trial involved 108 healthy adults and it demonstrated promising results. The phase 2 trial adds further evidence on safety and immunogenicity in a large population than the phase 1 trial. This is an important step in evaluating this early stage experimental vaccine, and phase 3 trials are now underway. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson held his first face-to-face cabinet meeting of top ministers since March 17, underlining his push to encourage others to go back to work and boost an economy hurt by the coronavirus crisis. The weekly cabinet meeting inside Johnson's Downing Street office was ditched when the COVID-19 crisis threatened to run out of control. Johnson, his health minister, and other top officials all caught the virus early in the pandemic. The European Union has reached a historic deal that puts at the bloc's disposal the shared financial resources needed to tackle the challenges of the COVID-19 crisis. German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Emmanuel Macron have welcomed the deal. Macron said the deal followed long and difficult negotiations during which concessions had to be made to win over member states whose objections were blocking a deal. The German Chancellor said the deal showed that the bloc is capable of acting jointly even during its biggest crisis and is willing to go down new paths in unusual circumstances. Political leaders should work to make COVID-19 vaccines accessible to everyone for the global public good. World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said at a regular press conference held at the WHO headquarters in Switzerland that political commitment is crucial for everyone to have equal access to the vaccine. Cricket Australia said on Tuesday it welcomed the clarity given by the postponement of the 2020 World Cup but would not be drawn on whether it preferred to stage the delayed event in 2021 or 2022. The International Cricket Council on Monday postponed the tournament scheduled in